I realized my parents had chosen my wife, not for me, but to punish me. And that was just the beginning. The glass didn't shatter. It exploded. Crystal shards sliced the air like thrown knives, landing on white tablecloths and silk dresses. My hand was still frozen in the gesture of the toast. The microphone buzzed. For a moment, no one moved. Then gasps. Whispers. A woman screamed. My father didn't flinch. He reached out calmly, picked up a fresh flute, and signaled the waiter for another bottle. My mother sat perfectly still, her diamond brooch catching the ballroom lights, lips pursed like she was posing for a photo. I stood there, the son, the failure, the embarrassment of the legendary Langston name, watching champagne drip from my cuff like blood from a wound. "You're making a scene," my mother said, not looking at me. "I haven't started," I said. And I meant it. What I was about to say would end everything they'd built, their legacy, their lie. But first, I had to go back. I had to remember the chain of decisions, humiliations, and quiet betrayals that led me here. I began thinking back to when it all started. It wasn't the failed deal that ruined me. It was how fast the fall came. One week, I was negotiating with Singapore investors in a penthouse suite. The next, I was locked out of my own office, my executive assistant crying as she handed me a box of my things. "You should talk to your father," she whispered. That same night, I found the family car waiting outside my apartment. Black. Silent. Just like always. I didn't speak on the ride home. Home, meaning their estate. They never called it mine. Inside, everything was in place. Oil portraits of ancestors, fresh roses in baccarat vases, staff trained to look through you. My mother was waiting in the drawing room, dressed like she was meeting a senator. "We've decided," she said without greeting. "You'll marry Claire." Silence. "Who is Claire?" I asked. "She's grounded," my father said, entering behind her. "Not from our world. That's good for you now." "What?" "She'll stabilize you. She comes from real people. She works, doesn't spend, won't challenge you." "She sounds like a Labrador." My mother's hand twitched. "You're not in a position to be clever." I laughed. I actually laughed. "You think marrying some real girl will fix my business crash?" "We think it will fix you," my father said. "You forgot who you are." "No," I said. "I forgot who you want me to be." "You'll do it," my mother added, voice cold, "or we pull every bridge we ever built for you." That's when I knew. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about me. It was about control, image, status maintenance. But I said yes. Because back then, I still believed there were worse things than obedience. Now I know better. I didn't meet Claire until the wedding day. It was a small ceremony, by Langston standards. Only 80 guests, no press. The venue was a private estate in the Berkshires, leased under an alias. Everything had the scent of damage control. Claire wore no veil. Her dress was elegant, simple, without glitter or lace. She looked at me as if this were a boardroom negotiation, not a marriage. No smile, just eyes that measured. "You're late," she said softly when I reached the altar. "I thought that was fashionable," I replied. She tilted her head. "Not for broken men." The priest started talking. I didn't hear a word. I watched her instead. Not the way you watch a woman. The way you watch a fire when you're not sure if it's controlled. The house we were given was clinical. Brand new interiors. Furniture like it was rented. Every surface wiped of history. It wasn't a home. It was a stage. For the first few days, we barely spoke. She worked long hours, disappearing before I woke, returning after dark. I stayed inside, going through the motions, reading contracts I wasn't signing, answering emails I didn't send. There were calls from my mother. I didn't answer. One night I found Claire in the kitchen, standing barefoot, eating cold noodles from the pan. I said, "You're not what I expected." She didn't look up. "What did you expect? A nursemaid or a handler?" She smiled, just a little. "And you're not what I was warned about." That stopped me. "Warned?" I asked. "Your mother had lunch with mine. Made it sound like you were some lost, damaged prince." She turned, eyes steady. "I don't do pity, James." I leaned on the counter. "Then what do you do?" "I keep my name, my work, my money." She pointed at a drawer. "And my prenup. Top left, if you ever get curious." The more I watched her, the more something itched in my brain. She was too composed, too aware. This wasn't someone plucked out of nowhere. She had skills, patterns, a presence that came from years of carving space in rooms full of men. I followed her once. She left a coffee shop on Spring Street, but didn't go to work. She turned the corner, entered a glass building I didn't recognize. I waited, watched the people going in, suits, badges, a kind of practiced urgency, startup types, investors. 2 hours later, she came out with a man I knew by face, one of the partners at a mid-size venture capital firm. She kissed his cheek. I stepped back into shadow. At dinner that night, I didn't confront her. I cooked instead. Pasta. Simple. She raised an eyebrow. "You're nesting?" "I'm watching," I said. "Am I supposed to be afraid?" "No," I said. "You're supposed to be honest." She put her fork down. "You first." That was the moment something cracked. Not in her, but in me. Because I didn't know what truth I was supposed to give. That I'd been a pawn? That I was scared of what I saw in her? I changed the subject. Cowardly. But she didn't push. Just ate. Quietly. As if giving me room. That night, I dreamed of my father. He was holding a chess piece, a knight, chipped and bloodstained, and placing it on the board with slow, surgical precision. "Sacrifice," he whispered. I woke before he moved again. I began watching Claire more carefully, not suspicious, curious, the way she ran her calls, how she dressed differently depending on the hour, the subtle signals of a woman who had built something, then disguised it. I checked her laptop once, locked. Then I found her name on LinkedIn. Not the public one, the private profile. Different last name, different industry. Senior partner in a boutique tech advisory firm. She had money, power, and secrets. The question wasn't why she hid them. It was why she let me start to find them. She left her planner open one morning, a list of calls. Meeting with Trent, one line underlined twice. Langston Holdings, trace back. I didn't touch it. I memorized it. Langston Holdings wasn't my father's main company. It was a shell, one of dozens in the family portfolio. Quiet, dormant, or so I thought. I drove to the old downtown office building listed on their old tax records. The guard recognized the name. Let me in without asking too many questions. Third floor, empty desks, dust on the chairs, but the lights were on. I found a box labeled 2019 to 2021. Inside, contracts, emails, payment trails, all of them connected to a fund I'd thought was independent, the one that collapsed my startup. My name was on the documents, signature forged, dates too perfect. I sat on the floor, surrounded by my own career's autopsy. And then I heard a voice behind me. "You're not supposed to be here." I turned, a man in a maintenance uniform, but he wasn't carrying tools, just a phone, recording. I stood up slow. "I'm a Langston." "Yeah," he said. "That's the problem." He walked away. I didn't follow. At home, Claire was in the kitchen again, this time in heels, slicing an apple like it owed her money. "You went to the building," she said, without turning. "How do you know?" "I called ahead." "To warn them?" "Number. To see if you were ready." I stared at her. "You knew." She handed me a slice of apple. I suspected. Since when? Since the prenup meeting. Your mother offered me money to disappear after the wedding. I blinked. You never told me that. You weren't ready to hear it. I sat down. And now? Now you are. We spent the next week building a map. Claire was ruthless. She treated it like a hostile acquisition. Every name, every company, every shell account. She knew how to dig. Better than me. Your parents created the failure, she said, pointing to a red thread on the wall. Then offered you a leash, marriage, control. And you? She looked at me. I was a test, a leash they couldn't predict. But you played along. She nodded. Because I saw you weren't broken, just orphaned. I didn't speak. That word hit somewhere deep, below memory, below rebellion. Orphaned. One night we went to a gala, a Langston-favored charity, black tie, the kind of room where people introduce themselves by last name first. I saw my father across the floor, laughing with a senator. Claire looped her arm through mine. Smile, she whispered. Let them think we're ornaments. We floated through the room, took photos, said nothing of substance. Then a woman approached, sleek, late 50s, full diamonds. She grabbed Claire's hand like an old friend. You've done wonders for him, she said, eyes flicking to me. He looks less volatile. Claire smiled. He's restructured. The woman laughed. Well, just don't let him near any real power again. I excused us, took Claire by the wrist, led her to the back terrace. She knew, I said, about the sabotage. Of course. They all knew. Claire nodded. And they all played along. She looked at me. Still think your family's a dynasty? I didn't answer. I just looked out at the city, the skyline, the towers my name had helped build. And then I turned to her. Let's burn it down. Claire smiled, really smiled for the first time. Now you're speaking my language. The documents disappeared. We came home to find the red thread map gone, laptops wiped, her planner in the trash shredded. There was no sign of forced entry, just a note on the kitchen counter. Family first. Claire picked it up with a tissue. They're watching the house. I stood there, silent. This wasn't a warning. It was a leash snapping tight. We relocated that night. Not far, just a rental apartment on the east side, nothing registered under our names. Claire made calls. She had backup drives, cloud storage with layers of encryption. But it wasn't about the data anymore. It was about the message. And I cracked. For the first time in weeks, I left alone. No phone, just a coat and my father's old cufflinks still in my sleeve. I walked to the Langston Club. Marble entrance, velvet rope. The doorman recognized me. Inside, everything reeked of old money and quiet violence. The same men who toasted my graduation now glanced and looked away. At the bar, I ordered a whiskey, then another, and another. That's when he came. Miles Langston, my cousin, my father's errand boy. He sat beside me without a word, ordered a neat scotch, waited. Then, they want to know how loud you plan to get. I laughed. Tell them I'm just getting started. He turned. No, James, you're finished. You just haven't realized it yet. I looked at him. Really looked. Did you forge my name? I asked. His eyes didn't flinch. Does it matter? I swung. My fist connected. His glass shattered on the floor. Gasps. A waiter shouted. I didn't wait for the fallout. I walked out, blood on my knuckles, glass in my skin. Claire found me in the bathroom, hand under cold water. You hit him? She asked. I didn't answer. You handed them what they wanted, a tantrum, a public one. I don't care. You will, she said. When they use it. She cleaned the wound herself. Quiet. Efficient. Then she dropped the bloodied towel in the trash like a verdict. You're not a prince anymore, James. You're a weapon. So choose what you're aimed at. That night, I broke. Not loud, not cinematic, just broke. I sat in the corner of the room, lights off, floor cold, and whispered names I hadn't said in years. My mother's first lie, my father's third silence, the time I won an award and he didn't show, the birthday dinner that was canceled for a board meeting. Claire didn't speak. She just sat across from me, legs folded, watching, not judging, just witnessing. The next morning, I woke to glass, not broken, but reflective. A mirror on the floor, cracked in 4 corners, like it had been dropped long ago and never picked up. My face looked like someone else's. Claire stood in the doorway. You want to kill the myth? I nodded, then stopped bleeding in front of it. She took over the next phase, cold, brilliant. She contacted a lawyer she trusted, a man who owed her 2 favors and a career. He helped us verify the forged documents, trace the fake signatures, link the shell companies to board members, trustees, Langston loyalists. But it wasn't enough. We needed something bigger, something final, and we didn't have it. Not yet. But Claire had a name. One more player in the game. Vivian Creed, she said. Who is she? Your mother's fixer, the woman who cleans what doesn't bleed. I blinked. She's not real. She is, Claire said. And if we find her, we end this. I looked at the wall, the empty space where our map used to be. I felt hollow. Then I felt something else. Not rage, resolve. They'd burned the first draft. But I knew how to draw it again. Vivian Creed was real. And she answered her own phone. Claire got her number through an old contact in London, a woman who once handled asset laundering for high-tier divorces. She called it gray area diplomacy. I watched Claire dial. She spoke clearly, formally, asked for a consultation regarding reputational architecture. Code words. A silence followed. Then Claire said, "We're Langston adjacent." The line didn't go dead. The next day, we got a location. No name. Just a time and address. It was a bookstore, tiny, unmarked, smelled of old pages and wood polish. A man in corduroy nodded as we walked in, locked the door behind us. Vivian was already waiting. She wasn't what I expected. No trench coat, no dark glasses. Just an older woman in a navy sweater, hair tied back, reading Marguerite Duras like she had nowhere else to be. James Langston, she said without looking up. You've grown. My mouth opened, but no sound came. She finally looked at me, sharp eyes, no warmth. I carried you once. Your mother was in Monaco. You had a fever. Claire watched her. We need proof, solid, fast. Vivian smiled. I know. She closed her book. What they did wasn't sloppy, but they weren't hiding from me. They thought I was part of it. You weren't? I asked. No, she said. I was the insurance, but they stopped paying the premiums. She led us downstairs. A vault. Not metaphorical. A real one, temperature-controlled, sealed, rows of files like a private intelligence archive. She handed us a black folder. Inside, photographs, old memos, wire transfers. A voice transcript of a meeting my father, Miles, and a board member planning my company's collapse 6 months before the actual investment failed. It wasn't just sabotage. It was strategic inheritance control. Vivian spoke slowly, like a teacher. They didn't want you broke. They wanted you afraid of autonomy. Why give us this? Claire asked. Vivian smiled. Because your mother lied, and I don't tolerate amateurs. We left with the file, both of us silent in the car. Claire finally said, This changes the endgame. I nodded. It's not just revenge. No, she said. It's a reckoning. We planned carefully. Claire rebuilt the evidence network, This time off-grid, no cloud, no trace. We contacted an independent journalist, not mainstream, someone hungry, moral, and smart enough to know what not to publish before the right moment. And we got a date. 2 weeks. My father's 75th birthday gala. Everyone would be there, donors, investors, family. The temple of legacy, lit from within. I'm not just going to expose them, I said. I'm going to make them watch it burn. Claire didn't blink. Then you better be ready for what comes after. The pressure built slowly. Every night I reviewed the evidence, practiced my speech, visualized the fallout. I expected panic. But what came was clarity. Every image, every email, every forged paper, it was like brushing dust off my own name. I was never weak. I was framed, redesigned. Now I was rewriting the blueprint. On the morning of the gala, I stood in front of the mirror. Same suit, same tie, but a different man. Claire adjusted my collar. Her hands were steady. "You're sure?" she asked. I nodded. "If you do this," she said, "there's no going back. No more dinners, no polite calls, no invitations. You become the virus in the bloodline." I looked her in the eye. I'd rather be the cure. The gala was a fortress. Langston Tower, top floor, golden elevators, live quartet in the atrium, servers in white gloves balancing trays of champagne like currency. Outside, the press was held behind velvet ropes. Inside, power smiled and compared scandals like collectibles. I arrived with Claire on my arm. No one stopped us. That was the first sign they didn't know. Yet. We moved through the crowd like diplomats, not hiding shining. Claire in midnight blue, hair pinned like a sculpture. Me in the same cufflinks my father gave me at 21. A touch of irony. "Play the role," she whispered, then flipped the script. At the center of the hall stood the stage, microphone, projector, flowers arranged like a coronation. Behind it, a massive banner, Langston Legacy, 75 years of vision. My father stood under it, surrounded by sycophants, laughing, dominating. My mother nearby, greeting guests with her signature nod, the kind that could crown or crucify depending on the angle. They didn't see us. Not yet. We weren't guests. We were witnesses. In the side lounge, I found Nate. Old friend, investment banker. Still loyal or tired of pretending. "Nate," I said, "what do you know about shell companies called Camber North and Blackrise?" He blinked. "Jesus, why?" "Because they weren't investments. They were weapons." He hesitated. "You can't prove that." I smiled. "I can." He leaned in. "Then be careful. You don't bury people like your father. You wake dragons." I patted his shoulder. "Good. I speak fire." Claire worked the floor while I waited. She handed flash drives to 3 people: media, law, finance, each in a plain envelope, each containing the same dossier Vivian gave us, cross-checked and footnoted. "Timing is everything," she murmured as she passed me the final copy. "Go after dessert. No one leaves before cake." They called me up after the toast. I walked to the microphone like it belonged to me. My father smiled from the front table. My mother froze, wine glass midway to her lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "thank you for gathering to celebrate not just a man, but a myth." Some applause. Polite, confused. I glanced down at Claire. She nodded once. I started with the business history, the public version, the family fables. Then, but stories aren't always true, and legacies aren't always earned. The room hushed. I held up a single page. This is a transcript. It details how my own company was dismantled by members of this family, not out of malice but calculation, to preserve power, to ensure obedience. A gasp, then silence. "The man we celebrate tonight," I said, "orchestrated the financial sabotage of his own son and was aided by members of this room." Chairs shifted, Eyes darted. No one stood. I kept going. Short, precise, no fury, just facts, documented, delivered.